All right, and we are back with another episode of Panther Airsoft Holding Table Talk. This is your host Poi. Happy New Year, guys. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Happy New
Happy
Year,
New Year.
guys.
Dave's
Merry
back with us
Chrysler.
here. Merry Chrysler. Actually, how was your guys' New
I
Year?
had to sneak it in.
How was your guys' New Year? Tack, you could go first since you're at the bottom. There, go.
Yeah, my New Year's was pretty calm and collected. I was just hanging out with the family and stuff
Oh,
like
that's
that.
good,
We
that's
stuck
good.
with the whole restriction thing,
Ugh,
you know,
yep.
just sticking with the immediate, household and stuff like that. So
Yeah, well,
it was
you
good.
you and Mac are in the same household, so I hope you guys didn't get sick of each other. Now you have to be in a podcast with each other. I saw that eyes roll,
brutal.
Mac.
What?
I don't know. We all hung around the TV for like, the countdown and hung around for about an hour. Pop some champagne and called it a night.
how was yours, Mac?
It was okay. It was really nice to be around my family and stuff like that. Thank you, Tack, for not being a total dick. Yeah, it was a good time. Like obviously it's been a hard year for everybody.
Yep.
And we're still dealing with it, but the days will get better. So everyone just, I hate. I don't want to be the optimist, right? But I have to. It's like things will get better. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You have to because I'm the pessimist.
I know. I am well aware of this.
Yeah,
This
it's like forced optimism. Don't worry, bro.
I know, right? It's like it's
Forced
either this or you
optimism.
die. Do you want to die? It's like no.
Also,
I
I
don't
want to
die.
see that shirt. What does your shirt say there?
Oh, this is thank you.
Zero
I just see
bark.
a dog bud.
It's
Zero
so-
bark 30. I want quad nods on that dog now.
Yeah,
I
it
wish,
needs
I
quad
wish,
nod.
I wish. There was
Oh, God.
another one. I'm thinking about. I will go back and get it, but it was like Doggo Actual. No, you know what? I'm getting it for you, boy.
Aw. Actually, speaking of presents, Tack. Sorry, yeah, Tack. Did you get your presents from because I don't know if you
No.
saw the last episode, but
I saw the episode. I still didn't get the present.
where is it?
It's waiting.
Okay.
Oh,
It's probably at the field, isn't it?
No, I mean like it might.
Well, you never gave it to
either way-
him.
Either way, it's safe and secure, and it is waiting for when we can finally reunite and do the podcast together again.
All right, and Mr. Schoolboy, welcome back to our show here. How was your New
great
Year's?
to be back. Out of everyone here, I probably had the most uneventful. So because I got a new puppy,
Yep.
a Pepper.
That's uneventful.
No, just wait out. Just wait out. My girlfriend and I ended up being, or fiance, I should say now. We were so tired by New Year's Eve, and we were like, what? It was 10:45, and I kind of looked at her, and I was like sitting on the floor with the dog in my lap. I'm like, can we just put the dog to bed? We should just go to bed. That was my New Year's, man. I woke up in 2021 and just decided to sleep it off.
Hey,
That's good,
it wasn't
man.
bad.
No.
hey, that's pretty good. You got a dog. You're starting 2021 right off the bat with a new dog. Nice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sorry,
well,
strong.
awesome, man. I'm glad that you
Happy for you,
glad
dude.
You guys have a little friend.
Thanks,
Hopefully, you
guys.
can bring her by. It is a
plan on
female
it.
dog, or
Yeah, it's
or
a
is it
dog-friendly place
Yep.
at Panther. We all know this. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Like, come on, we'd like to dress her up.
All right.
I'm just saying, Annabelle looks great in her tack vest. So
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Mhm.
She is getting old, but she's
Oh,
still good. She's still good.
She's still the apple of my eye.
All right, let's get on with some news here. Any updates at the field, guys? I know I haven't been at the field because of the COVID restriction stuff, but for you two there, have you guys been out at the field? Any news or anything like that we should be aware of?
Just there's a lot of movie set stuff going on. Try not to touch any of the stuff. There's a lot of stuff being staged in the barn right now. So if you can find room, find your spot. Try not to crowd around. You gotta stick with the whole COVID measures and stuff like that. So keep your
Mhm.
distance. Keep your face mask on and everything like that. With outside the field, weather permitting, so you might be able to use some of the tables and stuff like that. The last few weekends it's been pretty wet, so if you guys have your own tent, might be a good idea to bring it out. there's some upgrades happening right now on the city side. Some of the players might have noticed. There's going to be a couple more things going on around there, so city games might slow down just a little bit. Other than that, I don't think I have any news for.
What about turnouts? Are we still seeing a lot of turnouts for the weekends here?
Well, I would say we got your decent turnouts for the new year stuff like that. We're averaging within the average normal group range and stuff like that you can have a decent um large a large engagement.
Okay, so still
You
good
know,
then.
exactly. You don't want to have some of those trench games where it's like 10v10 or something.
Are we seeing an influx of new players as well from new purchases from the holidays, or is it just still the norm?
I would say yes and no. I think last weekend we saw a family. I believe a full family out
Wow.
together.
All right.
All with brand new airsoft equipment and stuff like that.
That's always
So,
good to
that
see.
was really good to see. Yeah, I
Yeah.
even saw mom and dad playing with the kids, so that was pretty cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's our updates from the field. Hope to be there soon, but this, if things
Yeah,
start to
I
calm down,
understand.
hopefully I'll be there because it is away from my, communal area as well. So,
We should buy you a bio suit.
He has one. This is what we've been saying to him. Like, let's go, boy.
Come on.
Like
Full
like I'm
hazmat.
saying, he's
So
got
he
the
gets
whole
labeled trade.
shebang. Okay, I've seen Poi's bug out kit. It is like ready for anything except a zombie scenario because like
Comes
you
out
can't
with
do
full
anything
PPE.
about that.
Oh man,
That's when I
that'd be
open.
something.
That's when I open the gun closet. Then we're talking.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. That's a whole
I'll put
nother
my
kit.
gas mask on and I'll get a mop suit, man. We'll run around in bunny suits all day.
Until someone yells gas, 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 then your tears come out of your eyes.
Here we go. 2021 with a bang.
Joke's on you. I'm on mop stave 4.
That is true. I heard that. All right. Let's get on with our topic here. So, for a lot of our regular viewers, or people that are familiar with Real Steel training and, all the Instagram and YouTube celebrities for, specifically gunfighting skills and such, there's a lot of them online, but just to hype it up. But if you guys are familiar with TREX Arms, Lucas, what's his name? Lucas Botkin. He's there with all the other sort of gun celebrities that are in YouTube, and he had a recent video in regards to airsoft as a use for training. You probably seen the sort of video that they released a year ago, which is basically training with what's his name, Liku Tactical.
Yeah.
And he basically sort of imitating what Lucas does and does it with airsoft guns. So it made a point that you can dry fire train with airsoft guns. And then now, fast forward to a year, and Lucas is now using airsoft as sort of a training tool because there's things in there that are just more than just gun manipulation skills. There's a lot of things in airsoft that can, that can train other skills other than gunfighting, and as well as like manipulation.
The mechanics. Yeah,
the mechanics. For us, yes, airsoft is the tool that we use to shoot out BBs out of a plastic toy gun. Let's be honest here.
I don't know. The way I look at it is airsoft is the way to simulate what you want to do, like in a video game, what you would want to do, but you can't because if you shot a real gun at your friend, he'd be dead.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to make light of it and say that you want to make it sort of into a game, but let's be real, right? Sports is a game because like if we didn't have sports, what would we have other than that, right? We would have gladiator games. And we're not all into, watching each other die for sport anymore. So I think, it sort of evolves to some certain degree. There is a cringe factor to it to some people and stuff like that. But again, it comes down to like, well, yeah, to some. There's always going to be the outliers and stuff like that, right?
There is a lot of cringe when it comes to
like,
right?
let's be
Flat
real,
out.
right? Just like there's lots of cringe with airsoft, but come on, there's lots of cringe with real firearms.
I mean,
right?
100%. I mean,
military guys
like
also get cringy too. Yeah.
That's a loaded thing to say.
Sure, it's a loaded question, but it's like there's a degree to both sides.
You're gonna find the bad in everything, right?
Well,
exactly,
if you go looking for the negative, you'll always find it.
Yeah,
pretty
always.
easy to find. Yeah.
So I feel like it's
Airsoft is
definitely
more goofy than it is serious half the time. That's really what it is. You can look at it and you can
yeah.
look at it with a light heart, and there's a lot of novelty to it,
Hmm.
which is great for somebody who's coming into it and for the player because it's very open and sort of friendly. But at the same time, if you want to look at it with a more serious aspect, you can definitely get that out of it. But you have to
Exactly.
also accommodate for the fact that you're going to have the loopy and the meme side of things. But that
Mhm.
exists everywhere. I mean, in the gun world, in the gun community, it exists too. You get the guys basically who have ranges in their backyards someplace in the States, and they do some really goofy shit, to
Mhm.
put it nicely.
Yeah.
Videos do get
Yeah,
leaked.
and
Yeah.
then over
Well,
here you
yeah,
could
not
go
always
out to
safe
Crown
either.
territory, or like if you own a ranch or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, then that's where you could get out and start training with like real steel stuff, and that's if you could afford it, right? I mean, the
Yeah,
affordability part of
because-
it is pretty high. Ammunition
Yeah.
costs a lot. The guns cost a lot, especially in Canada, and we're pretty limited to the magazine capacity as well, in terms of our laws.
That
Yeah.
shouldn't affect your training at all, to be honest. Like,
True,
too much.
true.
No,
That
it
means
doesn't. It
Canadians
doesn't.
are
Yeah,
faster at
exactly.
reloading? Question mark.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's yes and
Faster
no,
than
right?
Californians.
Oh,
Oh, why
boy.
did you say that?
But yes, when you look at it, right, like the serious factor of it kind of disappears because you're just slinging BBs and stuff like
Mhm.
that, and you could be like, oh, okay, you can use simunitions, right? So yeah, okay, so you're using simunitions, you're using chalk style, hardened chalk rounds or like soap rounds or whatever it is at each other. You see
That's
the shell
super limited
casing.
too.
It,
Yeah,
it, well,
you can't get those as civilians.
well,
Yeah,
so
like you're
there's
not.
in,
Yeah,
in Canada there's that factor, but like ignoring like some of the mitigating factors of it and stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
Like
please don't.
you have that, and then the next step is blank fire with lasers and stuff like that, and then the next step with
Yeah,
that is
no.
actually using real bullets and stuff like that. So when you come
You
down
left
to it,
you
right?
left one method out. You left the bang bang method out.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
My
That's the
favorite.
first. That's the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
training regimen you should
So,
implement.
so when you look at it, right, it's just like the different degrees of cost, right? So, like when you take it to the most extreme, right, it's the most effective. You're going to get the best training out of it and stuff like that, but it's going to cost a lot.
Mhm.
COVID right now is the best example of what can happen, when a big pandemic hits and things change, right? I feel like that's a huge um, influencer to sort of the movement because you saw all the memes about 9mm ammo and all just ammo in general in the States being super expensive, right? Like how people,
Well, it's gone. It's not that it's expensive. It's gone.
Yep.
well,
It's a
yeah,
great
Everybody's
ammo
bought
shortage for
ammo
2020. It's like toilet paper, but
for
10 times
the-
bigger apparently.
Yeah,
Or
like
like
graphics
exactly,
cards.
everybody.
Yeah.
Graphics
yeah,
cards.
yeah. My
IT
favorite,
world.
my favorite meme
Grab them now. Grab.
for it was like the Ferrari or whatever it was before 2020 or whatever it was. It's like Ferrari means you're rich,
And
and
then
then now it's
after.
like all this ammo and guns and stuff like that means you're rich. So it's like you know um continuing on with that. So it's like yeah, okay, so that's really expensive, right? Then the simunition part comes in, so that's a little less expensive, little less
Mhm.
effective because it's not going to cycle as well as a gun. I'm sure it has its same problems and stuff like that. Um,
Stoppages are real.
more and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
you have that difficulty factor of it, and then now, as you said earlier, right? It's just some civilians stuff like that can't get access to it, and it's expensive. So then the next one down from that, you can use the obviously I skipped over the lasers and stuff like that, but most of the time those are used with the military, so that can sort of be in its own
The
class.
Those are
miles
also
training
bad.
are pretty
They're not
expensive to
good.
begin with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So then comes down to the whole airsoft factor, right? You could, of course, incorporate all the silly Nerf darts and stuff like that, because some people do. But with the whole airsoft factor of it, right? It's the cheapest, right? You're using plastic BB
Mhm.
at each other and stuff like that. And some people will even touch on the whole point where when you're training or whatever it is, you're not just going to shoot one shot and then stop. So like with the whole airsoft factor of where you're playing in like a skirmish factor, right? You shoot one shot or you get hit once kind of thing, you put your hand up, whatever it is, right? But when you're doing it in like a training fashion, you're probably going to get pelted with like 10 to
Oh
15
yeah.
shots from these guys because that's what they're practicing for, is like they're trying to get you down kind of thing, right? So it's like that's what's going to be expected with that. So like again, it comes down to like the whole cost effectiveness. Like BBs are super cheap, right? You can still sort of like
Yep.
practice that factor. Of course, you can do the force on force stuff with the simunitions and with the blanks, but that's super expensive. So you can do that with the BBs. people might not be able to call the hits as easy, right? But again, I think it comes down to like the attitude towards it, right? Because if you're focused on that factor, I think everything else sort of
Yeah, you got to
falls
put a
in line.
disclaimer there because you can't do force on force with real steel and real bullets. So let's just be clear with
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you
Unless
could.
unless you're
Go ahead.
Russian, unless you're the Russian special forces
yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. You have two different types of ranges. You have a one-way range and a two-way range.
Ah,
The
yes.
chances of you being on a two-way range is highly unlikely, and that the goal isn't to always be on a two-way range. But
Yeah.
if you can emulate it for force on force purposes, or for the purpose of understanding things, it does help. Obviously,
Right.
because you can only spend so much time on a one-way range, and you can
Yeah.
come up with as much theory as you want, but unless you actually apply it to some degree, you'll never know if it actually does work. So
Exactly.
that's kind of the caveat to that. And I'm not saying go out there, obviously, and emphasize the idea of using real firearms in that scenario. I mean, for God's sake, we all know what it leads to.
Yeah, some people can't
Is a
take
great
it.
tool for that,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah. So we're talking about
Yeah.
pricing and stuff. That's not that's
It's cost effective.
yeah,
is
the
correct.
cost effectiveness. That's only one of sort of the benefits of going to airsoft. We're now
many.
of many. There's also other skills that we could train on as well, and there's plenty of plethora of them out there, right? You're talking about the two-way range and a one-way range, right? In terms of the two-way range, right? You have one, enemy force on either side, and you got yourself and your team on either side, right? And then you're looking at teamwork, communication, and PID. And then on top of that, Mac's favorite, fitness, CQB, right? And then
I'm saying, man, it doesn't mean
outsmarting
anything if you can just run 10 feet to a target
and
shoot. Like,
maneuvering, your team to defeat the enemy. Like, it's just one of those things that just adds to it, because if you're doing solo in a range, right, and you're just doing, sort of like firing with your buddy as well, then yeah, you could get some team training in there, but targets are pretty static, like what we call flat training, right? Versus dynamic training, which is basically the enemy is trying to outsmart you and you're trying to outsmart them too.
Exactly.
So things like that just emphasizes, like, just hones your skill even more.
It's chess with guns.
Yeah. So
Well, you
in
can
terms of
multitask.
in terms of flat training, you're only gonna get so much in that training. You're gonna get your speed, you're gonna get your weapon manipulation up, how fast you could switch to your sidearms, how fast you can reload and stuff. But that doesn't put into a factor where you're trying to outsmart the enemy, trying to think faster than your enemy, trying to figure out what they're trying to do and stuff. Providing covering fire, and then having your teammate move, and then they can't move. Now it's your turn to do something, right? And those skills are not something you sort of develop on a flat training. That's something that you get in a dynamic training. To put into perspective, when I was helping Camp X 103, sorry, I forgot.
103.
Camp X 103
You got
train.
it right, 100%.
Yeah, with Jeff and Andy. So we got our JTF guy who's got purely a lot of field craft and field experience to begin with, transitioning into airsoft as a training tool, and he absolutely loved it because of the fact that the dynamic training of it is much better than flat training, because you could only do so much at a range, at a certain time limit, at a certain budget too, right? You could only output so much lead until you run out of money, or your participants run out of money for ammunition, right? Versus in airsoft, where you go out there, train them how to manipulate the weapon properly, train them how to move as a team, train them how to move, small unit tactics, communication, and as well as, trying to outsmart the enemy that they place in front of you. Then, it's effective training right there. They're going to react to fire much better when there's actual like BBs flying their way. Versus when you say contact front, and then you got flat targets in front of you, then it becomes like oh, it's right there, I'm just gonna shoot it, and then I'll be like covering fire, I'm moving, right? There's a difference when you have an enemy hiding from like a window or something. You're actively looking, and then he's gonna switch positions to another window, right? So it changes overall, and then their training consists of a lot of things like a VIP hostage rescue that requires a lot of dynamic sort of like a lot of in-place actors in a way that you have like a VIP that you gotta hold up in a box area as he moves around city. That person will react differently as he enters, and then he meets some guy. You at that point it's you can't have real, like, unless they're willing to, like, shoot at each other with real ammunition, right? And airsoft is different, right? They're not gonna die, so it just adds that dynamic feel to the training right there versus flat training. Yeah, that puts perspective into what these guys were looking for, and they're like, they like it. And then we added the actors, the stunt crew in there as well to add a little bit more dynamics into their training, which is awesome because these guys actually fall properly and stuff. And as well as adding the vehicles from Blue Force. What's the vehicle rental place? Blue Force.
Blue Force Equipment Rentals.
Yeah, Blue Force Equipment Rentals. Adding those vehicles and actually doing proper dismounts and such, in a way, and as well as firing BBs at them as well as they exit, or it just adds to the whole dynamic training, which is awesome. You can't simulate that at a range. Because in a range, you're pretty restricted.
It's hard too, right? I mean, and not for your everyday person. I mean, I feel like that's really like the emphasis that we want to put out to people. Because, I don't want like Poi. I love everything that you said. Tack, loved everything, right? And then especially like we're all coming off of the video that Lucas just came out with, and everyone just saw it on social media, and now everybody's just kind of like talking about it. So,
I haven't.
like, not yet, but you're gonna watch it and you'll judge it later. I know you. Okay, so like my main premise on this is like the main elephant in the room with the gun community and airsoft is that obviously they are not the same, but they are one in the same. You know what I mean? So it's like you are still playing with guns, but it is a toy. Whereas with military and law enforcement and stuff like that, you are using a tool for a job, right? And Dave, I'm sure you understand that from that aspect, from just being like your forces history and everything like that, and then also being able to wind down and play the game. I know you take a sense of realism and seriousness when it comes to your play style. I love that about you, and that's why like Tack hinted it to there, where we dropped the tools in the store for a little bit, and we blew the dust off the legs and came out and played. And that was honestly some of the most fun that I've had in airsoft in so long. And and that just came down to the fact that we were all working and utilizing these skills that people talk about or people think that they know, but it's like being able to implement them correctly is just whole much leagues better, and just having us there, who Alonzo was there, he was back on Christmas leave, and that was just great, the entire way that it worked together, because it's being able to communicate without even talking, right? Knowing how to fill a hole. Each guy's finding a job to do. We're maneuvering. We're working towards the same goal. It was just it was like I said, it just gave me.
It had good flow. It was very smooth. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
So as far as this goes, Dave, for you,
was,
do you compliment this as
quite pleasant.
Yeah. So for you, Dave, using airsoft now, does it complement your training, what you got from the forces, or is it something that's still fun for you, or what do you look for when you go into airsoft? Do you just go for fun, or do you go for training, or how does it work for you?
I'm kind of in the middle, but I go more on the fun side. Having done both, it's easy to see where the parallels run and then where the differences are. So the parallels are more coinciding to sort of the ability to move dynamically, just in general, like the flow, essentially, the dynamic aspect with moving targets. Ranges, they're generally different unless you're doing gunfighter drills, which means that CQB, anything where you're close. You can't emulate a lot of the same stuff with real firearms for obvious purposes, but the movement factor is really where I kind of see the fluidity of it. It's the same thing with just understanding basic body positioning and things of that nature, opposed to the gunfight, like the gun skills and the gun assets. I prefer to do dry fire training on my service rifle when I have the opportunity to, and I'll take as much of that as I can. It's hard to do it in airsoft unless you have a gas gun, but even with a gas gun, there are some limitations, obviously, and mainly the the big difference is with like I think Lee Koof figured this out pretty quick. With an airsoft gun, you can load that magazine in and you can slap it really quick, and you can almost hit the mag release at the same time, and it'll load around every time and
Yep.
fire. Whereas with a real one, you need to make sure it's seated, or else you're not seating around right away.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a very real thing. But I like the dynamic side of things, man, and I have fun with it. I mean, I think airsoft should be fun in its essence too. I don't think it needs to be super anal all the time. And yeah, I mean, it's a good tool. I'll say that much. So it's nice to always be fondling something that's familiar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and as for me, I complement it with a lot of things I picked up over. For me, I come from the video game backgrounds, coming from like a Milsim community in a video game like Arma, and as well as like back in the old days, basically just a lot of Arma. For me, coming into the airsoft field, I already knew how to manage a large sort of platoon and squad. So for me, complementing that as part of my training, it's not like everybody has to take a gunfighting training or some sort of training in airsoft just to complement whatever you're doing, right? If you're used to it, you could complement it with airsoft, right? For me, it's teamwork communication, radio communication as well. Map reading is a big one for me because I'm like, I love reading maps and stuff, and and afterwards is maneuvering your squad and micromanaging or managing your squad or your fire team or your even your platoon. For me, I already had that in the back of my head, but implementing that at the field, I just needed a lot of training, right? We're talking about all of these things like this is what we do, but it takes sort of years or even months or days of training to do this, right? You don't just pick it up right away, right? For me, I had it in my video,
hours and hours of training.
I had it in my video game sort of a Milsim community where I knew how to run a squad, but going out in the field, it's different. Dealing with people is different. Physically moving them, right? You're a lot more tired. There's a lot more motion in it, but you train and train and train, and then you get to a systematic point where this is what I do. This is how I do it. This is this is how my squad's gonna do it, or something like that, right? I have it, like down to like the most common denominator of how to manage the squad and stuff. So that's the training that I've done in airsoft, and it helped me a lot. And then going back to video games as well later on, it you get a little bit more sense of sort of what do you call it, situational awareness of how everybody works and stuff.
That's a big one.
And that is one of those things where you can't just pick that one up, read a book or whatever. It's one of those things where you got to go out there, communicate, ask, process that information, and then you train and train and train, until you get good at it, and in a way that you could effectively run a team, right? Leadership is not something you're born with. It's something that you train hard, and you train with people, right? With real people even, right? And and for a lot of people it could be like fitness, right? There's a lot of people that like yourself, Dave, you complement your cross training, your fitness into airsoft, right? And it's one of those things where I wish I had that going right now, because of the fact that I have multiple injuries from my ankles that it's not possible for me, unfortunately. But it's one of those things where you work at it, and then you train and you work out and you train and you work out. It's not something that you could do in one day and say, oh, I did it. It's one of those things where you train and train and train, you work out, and you get better at it, right?
Progressive.
It's progressive, right? And that's the name of the game is, gunfighter skills and, versus other skills for training. Is airsoft is not just about gunfight. Yeah, you could make it just gunfighter skills to begin with, because it is manipulating your weapon, but you gotta train your other skills. It's not necessarily something that you're good at. You could train at something you're really good at, and then just keep going at it, right? Some people prefer to do radio communications or like map reading, fitness, CQB even. There's just people that are like really good at CQB, but unfortunately we don't have a good CQB area in Panther, right? So it could be anything, right?
Well, you know what they say, right? Like you can hone a skill and you can become very effective at one thing in particular. And there's always going to be that guy that's super good at one thing. But if you can't diversify that, it makes it very difficult when you go into dynamic situations. A great example is like talking like different ranges, like CQB, and then what you want to call like bush bush or field play, right?
Yep.
You can get
Like all,
really
like, yeah,
good
open
at
woods
close
or
quarters
something.
combat fighting. Yeah. But the moment you go to like woods and you have to deal with trees basically, or a dynamic environment that isn't so linear or like a laneway, it changes things, right? And you can't apply the same tactics. You have to have different tactics in the toolbox or in the rapport to actually pull out and use effectively.
Yep.
Now, in airsoft, it's super easy to get focused in one area, because at the end of the day, airsoft is very much focused half the time on just the engagement. It doesn't really like widen the perspective too much unless you go to sims or scenario games or anything where you're actually looking for that experience.
Yeah.
But most people, it's force on force and it's close range.
Yeah, and like I would say that's like
Yeah.
80% of the time people come down and just want to shoot a gun or shoot at, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
someone, right? And that's the way to blow steam, right? But if you've been here for a long time, you tend to sort of, you know, specify on one thing that you like. You know, you like kits, you could go for kits, right? You like it, you complement it with your fitness. You know, I did it. I complemented with my fitness regime back then, which I was in running, like, you know, long distance running, and as well as you know, airsoft complements it because you're running a lot too. You know, and then all the other things I complement it with as well. There's just a lot of things you can incorporate skill wise in airsoft that, you know,
absolutely.
in real steel you could still complement a lot of things, but you're pretty limited to what they call, you know, just like the flat training environment of it, right?
Yeah.
It's just flat and it's not moving, it's not dynamic. So
you're limited to the environment that you have available to you, right? And that's why the main thing with airsoft is the fact that it's so versatile on and this is why like the video in question really is kind of just making waves, because it's like, yes, he played airsoft before, and then he's spouting off because he's now, you know, making a name for himself in the real steel community, and then now he's dabbled back to airsoft, right? So it's like to have that and then come back to that, and then again, it's like we're highlighting the same issues that he's bringing up, where it's like, you know, it's like you're not going to an airsoft game, you're not using an airsoft gun to manage recoil. That goes out the window right away. So do not think in
100%.
any way, shape, or form this helps you in accuracy or
your
like,
marksmanship.
you know, the only fundamentals that you are implementing with an airsoft gun to a real steel gun is maybe some of the gun mechanics, and that by that being like some of the muscle memory that is built for that.
Let's not forget flagging.
Yeah.
Flagging and safety.
Okay, so that's a
Don't get me started on this.
Yeah. Make sure it's safe on the transition, please. On the transition.
Like, if you're taking it in a serious aspect, though, like flag, like, because I get it, right? With the blue guns, you have the blue guns. Why do you have the blue guns? Because that way you train it in your mind that that's a training platform. So when you transition to the real firearm, you get it in your mind. So I understand from a real gun platform, but then with airsoft, you can do the same thing. It doesn't have to be a blue gun. It can actually discharge a weapon, but you don't have to have that fear that you just killed the instructor or the person or whatever it is, right? But
I mean, the flagging factor is a big problem in general in airsoft. I'm not a huge fan of it. You have people who will actively, jokingly point their guns at each other and things like that. It sets off red flags in my head, and it makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable. It's the same thing with seeing people with their fingers sitting on the trigger.
Yeah.
And I can explain it from at least from like a military side of things. That's extremely dangerous. That's how you get someone killed. And the worst thing you can do is have a blue on blue, right? So at the end of the day, like airsoft in its essence, like if you're an airsofter and you're interested in going to real firearms, you need to be very cognizant of that kind of thing. And safety is at the utmost. And it should be the exact same thing in airsoft in its essence too. I don't like it when people flag each other or basically have very, very poor muzzle awareness and they're swinging the thing around. It drives me wild, man. And it makes me feel very uncomfortable. And it's funny because I'll go away and do training with the military and then come back. And then when I play airsoft, I get kind of that spider feeling crawling up the back of my neck when I see it. And I'm like, oh, like it rubs me the wrong way. I understand the knowledge.
Can we call it your schoolboy senses? My schoolboy senses are tingling.
Senses? Oh my god! Dude, like,
no, I get you. And you know, this is, I guess, the segues to another question: is this why real steel companies, like real gun companies, or you know, like military folks and like competition shooters? Is
Stay
this why
away.
they cringe at us? They stay away from us. This is why they look down upon us.
Yeah,
I think
I think
from
it's
from what I feel
I
that
think
this
there's
is
a few
why.
aspects. Yeah, I think I think safety is one of them. I think the other one too. Well, safety's got to be one of the big ones at least. One
Yeah.
of the other
Yeah.
ones, I hate to rag on guys that play Milsim, but guys that play Milsim, holy crap! Like sometimes airsofters try way, way, way too hard to emulate the real thing so close to the point that it borders on questionable behaviors, and that plus the ego factor pisses real people off in the sense of if you kind of what is it if you're spouting out how much you know about kit and all this stuff and you've never legitimately used it in a scenario and you talk to someone who has used it overseas, it can be a very touchy subject, and that's kind of where you need to be able to, for some of the Milsim guys to understand there's a line to be drawn there. But there are plenty of guys, man, that go right over that thing and they go way on to the next yonder. And I mean, I'm not trying to shit on them or anything like that, but for us, like when I have an airsofter telling me he understands the gear that I use in the military better than I do, it makes my blood boil and it makes my head want to explode because hey, I got to use it and I have to use it for its actual purpose, not just for fun. You know what I mean? So it's stuff like that that kind of pushes, I guess, us away. Same thing with the LEO guys, and that makes it cringe. But if you can get past that and you see the value in it right there, it's like a golden nugget, right? Like it's great because you can use it for a lot of different tools too, whether it be your weapon mechanics and understanding how to actually hold a weapon properly, the safety, the situational awareness, all that kind of stuff. It comes into play and it's dirt cheap. It's dirt cheap compared to real firearms.
Exactly.
And I mean, that's where I see the caveat. Yeah.
So with that, I know we've been talking about Lucas and stuff like that, right? With how it's being used and stuff. So, I don't know if you guys remember, but Project Gecko uses airsoft in
Yeah.
his force on
Yes, he
force breakdowns, and it's a
A
perfect
lot of the time,
example
yeah.
of what he does because he's not trying to focus on the recoil aspect. He's focusing directly on the human
The
sort of
environmental side of things. Yeah.
Well,
exactly,
it's like
right?
it's behavioral studies. A lot of it.
And we can get into I don't want to get into all the controversy or the contradictions that he might make with some people and stuff like
Mhm.
that because everyone's
Well,
got
he
their
gets into a
opinions.
lot of arguments. Yeah.
And like
Oh,
top
yeah.
people, and like all I can say is math doesn't lie. So if someone's got the stats to prove it and stuff like that, it's really hard to argue with the math regardless. You
Yeah.
might not like the
Mhm.
answer, but it is what it is.
Numbers,
Um,
bro.
so with that said, he's got a lot of videos online that you can look at off of UF Pro and Project Gecko on YouTube and stuff like that, where you can actually have a great example and see some of the benefits of airsoft being used in like a um, two-way range sort of scenario, right? Where they most of the time they're doing like hostage situations because
Mhm.
he's training Leo guys and soft guys and stuff like that, and that's what they're trained to do, right? They're counterterrorism dudes. They're going in trying to get an asset and get out. It's
Yeah.
not like I might joke on this, where it's like the Russian guys, where they're kicking in the door and they're shooting a machine gun at every single corner. I'm sure you guys all saw that video that was circulating around.
If
Right?
there is no
More of a
hostage,
meme,
there-
dude.
Like I'll tell you right now,
What
that guy
hostage?
that guy probably hit nobody in that room, and as soon as he walked in, probably got shot first. Let's be real.
Well, you know
Hey,
what
that
they
was a
say,
search and
right?
destroy mission.
Yeah, you know what they
like,
say, right? If you have a machine gun and you're going to clear a room, you might as well clear the room with
Yeah.
a lot of lead.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
Yeah,
not
why
gonna lie though,
Full auto,
man.
baby.
You could be shooting at a whole lot of nothing, and then when you come in, the guy shoots you right in the corner because you
Mhm.
didn't clear
Yeah.
it.
Um,
Hey,
in contrast to what
that's why I don't do that stuff.
in contrast to what you're saying about the Project Gecko doing the hostage situation training, it was the same deal when Camp X 103 came around and they wanted to do the similar situation,
yeah.
which they cannot do at a range. Like
Yes,
period.
exactly.
And
Because,
they wanted they were very
questionable.
specific on
Yeah,
this
that's a
on
no-no.
this on this at Airsoft. Is like, are we allowed to do this? And I'm going, yeah, I do it every weekend. And they're like,
It's a
oh
game.
my
It's
god.
a game.
It's a
It's a
game mode.
game mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for them, having that stress factor of having someone shoot you back when you're in a hostage situation, especially when the hostage all of a sudden becomes sort of this like Stockholm syndrome where he points the gun at you. What do? You didn't,
Yeah.
you know, you there's so many different situations, scenarios, and mindfucks that they did in this situation, and then Jeff goes, oh yeah, no, this has happened to me countless times, and I'm like, really? Like one of the people you're supposed to rescue, you know, hostages turned a gun on you. They're like, yeah, they just didn't know. And I'm like, wow. And he's like, this is what I want to simulate, is because this has happened to me. I want to see, you know, I want to emulate it to people, to the civilians, and what actually happens when, you know, when you go through like sort of your, you know, your missions as a SF. It's crazy.
Yeah, we know it's not like we know it's not like the movies or the video games, because there's always sort of like a narrative that plays out. In a real world scenario, you can't really predict what's going to happen. You can train and train and train and prepare for it at the end of the day, but until you actually execute it, there's a lot of variables that come into play, you know? It's same thing when you're planning a process, right? You plan the best mission possible, but it generally doesn't go to plan. So you kind of have to adapt to it. And I think for Airsoft, like, it works really well with force on force, because yeah, like you said earlier, like if you're coming into a room and you're anticipating a guy being in the corner, what if he shifts because he catches a glimpse of you, is on the other side, and shoots through the wall? Well, you know,
GG,
you can't, you can't just, exactly, you can't just go, oh, well, that wouldn't happen. It's like, no, that would. And I mean,
that messed up my breach.
Yeah, exactly.
That messed up my breach, bro.
Bro,
don't do that. Be a static target.
Yeah.
Yo, restart.
If I coming in, I'm gonna change my angle, man. I'm not gonna stand there.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I give a really good example.
Yeah.
I watched a video a while ago of I think it was the FBI basically raiding a dude's house, and the perp actually gets wind of them coming because he has a security system, and he does the most ridiculous thing. He goes in the dark garage, and his cameras are all night vision. He pulls up a picture frame and stands behind it. The entire team comes in, goes in, clears the house, and walks out. They didn't even check, and the guy gets out and leaves through the back window, and they never caught him. It's one of those videos that's just so surreal, and you're like, this couldn't possibly be real. It's like, no, that actually happened. So it's funny because in theory you could kind of practice that with Airsoft. You could go into a room clear and be like, yeah, the room's clear, and a dude's just hiding, right?
And then get shot in the back.
You don't know he's there.
You didn't check, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, one of my ideas in like an event style would be like VIP kind of thing, where you have a group of guys sort of looking for a VIP, but then you have that VIP with a group of guys, but those guys are practicing concealed carry or whatever. You know, I'm saying like in an extreme fashion, right? So these guys try to find the VIP and try and take him. You got the other guys who are actually protecting the dude, and then boom, that team looking for them don't know that those guys are armed, right? So you're practicing that sort of
Man, it's like, man, Poi, I don't know if you ever ran these games back in the day with us, but there were a few times where we did games up at Bigfoot where one team was allowed to strip down to just their combats, basically, put all their kit and hide it along with their weapons away, and then the other team had to come in and figure out where the stash was. But at any point, the guys could go back to it, acquire their gear and their kit and their airsoft guns, and come and they could shoot you. It was a really good game because it really just toyed with people so much. Especially in the aspect, you're like, oh my god, like, who's a threat, who isn't a threat, and all of a sudden, like, you hear shooting across like the field, and you go in to react to it, and there's nothing there. You know, those are real scenarios that actually do play out, and at the same time, you can emulate that very closely in Airsoft, and you can kind of get the emotional response too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Well, you know how my mini games work. It's just a mindfuck sometimes. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think games like that are great, to be honest with you, because it gets the player base thinking a little bit differently versus just force on force is not always going to be like that. Sometimes you're going to have to deal with something else going on.
I prefer it when, the individual or the participant goes in there, has to think, has to PID someone, think about it, and be like, it can't be him, right? Just like Trouble in Terrorist, you'd be like, it can't be him, but he's out there, like, he was just over there, but that guy's over there. You're like, wait a second, something's not, like mini games like that are great, right? Even though it's been bastardized or sort of, like it's been overplayed way too many times. It's just one of those things that, like, when people come to Airsoft, they like games like that, right? Because it's a game, right? You're using weapons that are toys, and then and then they like it because it's such a mind fuck, right? Like, oh man, I could have did this, but did that, but it was fun. Everyone's having fun, right? That's I think at the end of it, airsoft
Yeah.
is fun,
Well, people,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say that because people get pissed off at those kind of games because they get tricked, and that's the funny part to it. And that's also the part that's kind of novel about it because it's like, damn it, like I can, like, yeah, you could be the best guy to engage force on force, and like boom, 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 bingo, bango, bongo, you hit your targets
Yeah.
every time. But dude, you throw in another element. Those guys, you can't shoot them right away. You have to try and PID your targets, but they can engage on their own volition too. Whew, you're gonna have a lot of heated engagements with that.
Yeah, I think
What do you mean I'm been bamboozled?
So people just have to be okay with the fact that it's okay to be stupid. What's not okay is
Yeah.
not to learn from being stupid. In which case, then
Yeah,
you're
You
just labeled
don't.
an idiot.
That's called crazy. No, that's
No,
called
no,
Yeah,
no,
being
no,
crazy.
no, no, no. That's insane. Insanity is trying to do something over and over again,
So,
expecting a different outcome.
in
expecting different
contrast,
results.
this is why what is that game called? Among Us has become popular, like versus like
Oh,
Call of
God,
Duty or
yeah.
something. Is because it's
Yeah,
it's
because
the
it's
mind
trickery,
trick
too.
game. It's the trickery, the mind fuck games, the lying, the the consistent trying to flake.
hate to say
You
it, but
kind
I
of
love
sus,
it.
bro.
What do you mean? Human nature plays a factor into
Oh my
things.
God.
Interesting.
Yeah, I hate to say it, man. I love lying in that game. It's so
Yeah.
satisfying to trick all your friends and then be stabbing them all
So
at the same time.
again, we're contrasting it to again, flat training versus dynamic, right? Like everything gets thrown out when you introduce other people at the other end, right? Then they react, counter react, they freak out, they don't freak out. The stress
100%.
factor is there. That is the most important part in training, is you gotta have that stress factor in there.
Yeah, you
Right.
can have
I
a
think
perfect
that's like
day.
one of the
That's how you learn.
Yeah, that's how you
Well,
learn.
that's one of the
Yeah.
main aspects of it being different too, is the fact that it's like, it's different from being able to, like, whether you're static shooting or you're able to move, like, like maybe you're able to sprint between a target to target, right? But the fact that in an airsoft game, usually your engagement distances are like, over hundreds of feet, especially us being just so lucky at Panther where we just have massive amounts of
Yep.
acreage and stuff like that.
A lot
It's
of
like
place
you
to
can
move.
engage your target. Yeah, exactly. You have the capability to actually run with your kit full force and be able to engage a target, then move on, engage another target, right? And these are not like
Yeah.
and yes, we do have like a small CQB element in our field, but a lot of the time this is like you're engaging in like pretty vast, like to the maximum of like what an airsoft gun is capable of. That's why
Yeah,
everyone's
between
so
200
like
and 300 feet.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
people are
Like, that's what-
so gross on this idea that the airsoft gun has to
min-maxing,
shoot the
right?
maximum. Sorry,
Yeah,
it kills me.
min-maxing. I know,
Just
right?
just move up. Just move up, guys. Just move up.
Yeah.
It kills me because
Well,
people
those-
don't have the taste of
the
indoor
distance.
CQB with 30 feet, and it's like, throw in a good hop up system and you're good. You're hitting that guy, but it's like, no, I want to hit that guy. I want to sit there and be a chair softer.
The other part to that is like closing distance with your targets, and airsofters have a bad, and like
Yep.
I see this a lot. They have a bad tendency to move like 20 feet. They hunker down, and I mean, coming
So
from
they don't
like
wanna
a
get back
military
up.
side of things, yeah, every time you hunker down, unless you have like 3 times the amount for the force coming on you, you're screwed. You need to push into it. Like you need to punch. I mean,
Yeah.
a good defense is a really good offense. Is the best way to do
Yeah,
it. And if you're
aggressors
attacking,
usually win.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The more pressure you put on, the more pressure they feel, and depending on how they react to it, unless you react back, it's going to go wrong. And I'm going to
Well,
say
that's
this
where
in the most
mistakes
positive-
happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm going to say this in the
Exactly.
most
Like
positive
when you
light, like get comfortable with losing to an airsoft. It's a really good tool to learn from.
Yeah.
Too many airsofters get into the habit of being the winning only, and they can only win, and it becomes such an ego-driven thing that when they encounter a game where they're not winning, they either quit or they just get frustrated. It's good to lose. I actually encourage it, and I myself go through it a lot. I get my ass kicked a lot in the field, but I think it's a great tool and it's a great opportunity because at the same time you can try and identify what you're doing wrong.
It's one of those things where if something's not working and you guys are getting pushed back, try something else. Try another flank,
exactly.
move somewhere else, move away from
Shift
whatever's
positions.
grab a group of guys and work together.
Yeah.
My biggest thing is that anytime, like the biggest thing I've learned from my playstyle at Airsoft right, just trying to incorporate a lot of these like tactics and stuff like that, is that it's the same thing that happens to me in video games and stuff like that. When I get that feeling that I can just go and just go at it really, really hard or move somewhere, because it's like you have that feeling of like uh you're relaxed, right? And it's just like, no, you got to take things
Yeah.
slow. You got to be, anticipating something around every corner and stuff like that. You can't let your guard down because you're playing a
Try to
game.
be methodical. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard. That's what I can say. It's hard. Like that's why when you see some guys with some of their super kitted guns, and I'm sure you hear real gun guys talk about it all the time, where they talk about KISS and stuff like that, right? Just have a
Yeah.
simple
Keep it
optic
simple.
on there and just train with it and stuff like that. But you see all these guys that want to have a bipod, this, a suppressor on there, a
Yo,
scope
yeah,
riser,
don't you know
magnifier.
airsoft is 90% fashion?
Oh my god! And then and on top of that, let's throw on like a grenade launcher too. Let's just have the all-in-one.
Yo, you're attacking Dave.
Dude,
Who are you? Like, you are attacking half of my guns right
I
now.
actually use them though.
But the difference
Yeah,
is,
what the hell?
The difference is if you guys both look at yourselves, you guys can actually hold that gun up and hold that position.
I can also sprint faster than 95% of the field.
Exactly. Let's be real.
Work on your
that,
fitness, right?
Like I see all these guys with their kitted guns and stuff like that, and they just stand still. They're not actually trying to use it, and so that's why sometimes you see like the little renter kids outdo them, because the renter kid's got nothing and he's hip firing your ass.
Well, it's again like, man, like
that's no longer a renter. That's a Chad.
Yep, that always goes back. That always goes back to the part where like airsofters get way too into it sometimes, to the point where they don't think about the fundamentals or the basics.
Yeah.
And you have these super tricked out, get it up stuff and things like that. It's the same thing with snipers, man. Like, you get guys who buy these $1,200 rifles and can't shoot worth shit. And one of the reasons is they're standing up, or they're hanging out in the open, or they don't understand.
They don't train with it. They don't train with it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or they don't understand how map design works.
It's not like they watch Dayton's video and be like, oh, that's cool, that's so easy, and then they go out there, man, this sucks. Well, do realize that Dayton has been doing this for last 6-7 years, and he knows, and he trains for it, and he works out for it, and that's all he does. And that is his training regimen right there in airsoft, is holding a sniper.
Yeah.
That's his focus. And we've taken him out on real ranges and stuff and had him use sniper rifles and stuff, and he's a natural at it. Why? Because the stuff that he trains with, airsoft guns, that is, right, it's still heavy, but he has that steady hands still that he uses.
Well, he's prepped himself a little bit, right? And exactly where it comes down to what Dave's David, you've teased already.
Again though,
sorry,
all the accessories you buy for your guns and you put on it, and all the stuff you add on that you want to get out of it, you have to realize the factor comes into you. It's not about just what you put into it. You're the deciding factor on whether it's effective or not. So I mean, it's like grenade launchers, at least for me. Like, you can get one, you can put it on your gun, but unless you're going to invest in the grenade part and then actually practice with them to understand how to work and use them, you're not going to get anything out of it. It's just going to be a paperweight, right?
Yeah. If you're looking for the cool factor, cool. There you go. Done.
Precisely. Yeah.
Exactly. Go ahead.
Well, and it comes down to like guys who wanna, Lucas touched on it a little bit in his video, but it comes down to like some of the stuff that I do for my own airsoft builds, right? Where I throw a can on the end of my gun, and suddenly your gun is now that much longer. Suddenly you're not able to clear a certain room a certain way, right? And you're not able to just punch right through. You actually have to take a step or two back and hold your gun up, and then pie it a little more, So it's just like you can add those little things, it's like. It's just what you put into it, right? It's like you said. That's the individual basis, right? And then you can grow from there. Train with your friends or play with your friends, right? Make a game out of it, because that's what it is, right? Like, it comes down to back to what I said at the very beginning, when it comes down to sports and where things have gone with competition like that. The core of it is that we want to be competitive, right? We want to be able to have that sense of accomplishment of winning. Be it having finding accomplishment in losing, right? Because you can, right? Like we were saying, right? Like, we lost that corner, but at the same time we were able to hold out and win because our team was able to win that game and stuff like that. So it's just like,
that's another important one as well in terms of airsoft too as a training, is teamwork, communication. I see a lot of teams
yeah.
out there that just go out there and, dress up nice, have nice uniforms, matching uniforms and stuff like that, right? I could see a lot more effective people going out there with non-matching uniforms or, just wearing jeans and stuff, but they're communicating a lot better than the teams out there that don't practice it, right? Right? It could be as easy as playing video games with you on Discord and stuff, and communication is a big one, right? To get your sense of, situational awareness, communication is key, right?
I would argue it's the most important.
I agree. I
You
agree.
could be an
I agree.
individual.
Yeah. Airsoft tends to be an individual sport on its own because of the fact that, you go in there, you're spending this gear and this and that. But when it all comes down to it, you have 4 people with you. That's enough to cover, 90 degrees on every corner, right?
Exactly.
And that is important.
Once you get to like a team level though, and you're actually communicating effectively with people, and you're sharing information together.
Yep. Your situational awareness, just how big your situational awareness is.
Yeah,
and
it becomes more fluid. It's like a network, right?
Yep.
And highlighting that word especially because so many people in airsoft get so fundamentally trapped in that like tunnel vision and they lose sight of what's going on around them. I have friendly people around me. Of course, it's fine. I don't need to look around and everything like that.
It's just like
you get shot in the side.
Just like what Lucas
right?
is saying. You find a job, you plug that hole, right? Because you're trusting your guy watching that sector. You're gonna watch the other sector because you know that someone might come out of nowhere, and then someone's watching the 6 or something, right? Like doing that, doing that, makes you win because of the fact that you guys as a team are working together, and if someone hears something on the left, right, you don't just directly pigeonhole or like everybody's pin focus into that, He's just letting you know that there's a bush moving to the left of us, right? And then the team goes, yep, got it. And then, then they can start mystery, like in their heads, they can start tracking that someone is over there. So maybe they're going to hop out on my view here just in case, right? Yeah. And that alone is going to win the battle.
100%. And then you can break that down all the way down to the basic level, which is like use a buddy system. Always have a buddy.
Yep.
And then if you're traveling with a team basically and everyone's paired up, in theory, your 6 is always covered.
Yeah.
You always have someone that's working with you, so to speak.
Yeah, your responsibility buddy. Yeah.
Exactly. Responsibility buddy. Oh
my
god. Is
that's
that
what
a
it is.
South Park reference?
No, it's not. It's I actually I heard that one.
We were learning that in kindergarten.
Yeah, I heard that one from one of the rangers that taught me back in my Milsim days in the Arma is you always got to have a buddy with you, and he's your responsibility buddy. Yeah. If you go down, he's taking care of you. If he goes down, you're taking care of him and letting the team know.
He's a responsibility.
Yeah, there you go.
So, next thing I'd like to touch on, right, with the whole I'd like to get back to, well, I guess not next, but I'd like to touch back onto the cost of it.
Yep.
Okay. So, airsoft on the weekend, right? Depending on where you're from, I'll say I'll ballpark it from ballparking it cost wise, right? I'm not talking about all the bells and whistles that people want to get into. Okay, is $30 all the way up to I think $80. I think some places.
Yeah, that's an average. Right? It's like a snowboarding trip.
So now, let's like not even think about all the equipment. Let's pretend that you have the equipment, right? So you're there. That's not a bad price to be able to train with your stuff, to practice with your platform at place, right? Now, let's say we had, depending on the place, obviously Panther doesn't have a lot of buildings and stuff like that, so you can't practice urban CQC, but you can practice the open field factor of it, right? You can practice
open terrain environment. Yep.
You can put your plates on. You could put a backpack on. You could practice bounding and bumping from place to place, irregular terrain and whatnot, right? For the cost of that, where I'm assuming, because I haven't had the opportunity, right? But it probably costs in the hundreds of dollars at some of these other places from some of these other guys, right? Just to get a little tickle of knowledge from them, right? And then cue in the next level of that, right? Which is Milsim events, right? Tier 2 and Tier 1 events. Cost of those range from anywhere between, I think, as little as $75 all the way up to, I think, like $400 or something like that. I'm not going to include Border Wars because that's Europe, and I don't know all the details on that because I just know that people will spend their entire lives sometimes setting up to go to a border wars. I.e., the one
Hey
guy
man,
that
like
made that tank to go to border wars just so that he could shoot a
I,
tank.
you know what? I
Are you
mean,
telling me you wouldn't do that?
Yeah. I don't know. The distributing, I think the part in airsoft, like the defining factor really is like how much money you're willing to eat the cost of on your wallet. That's really it comes down to. You can spend as much as you want on it, and you can put it into everything. You get guys that collect airsoft stuff and only use it once in a while, and they don't do anything otherwise. But where they just have like having a large gun wall, and there's plenty of people that enjoy that. There's nothing wrong with it. You know,
Hey man, those
Mac,
guys are what
it's very small.
those are guys.
That's
that
my
keep the
World
gun
War
community
II
going.
gun, man. It's a very small collection.
Got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then, from there, the next one would be like, I guess, private training events, right? Where I'm assuming that they range between 200 all the way up to maybe a couple $1,000s, right? Depending on what it is. And when you talk about real guns, that money's probably going into the fact that ammunition is cheap, right? Plus the permits that are
See,
involved with real guns
for
and stuff like
for
that.
some
Yeah.
people, that is like for them going to like a private training with their favorite sort of Instagrammer or celebrity gun celebrity.
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a bonus to have someone train you because they're popular and stuff like that. But in all honesty, like that's still flat training regardless, right? Depending on what what their training is, right? You're more effective training on your own, or on a weekend with other people, in a dynamic sort of training.
Yeah. I think you can. I think it's good to go see a lot of these people, but it's also about what you.
Oh no,
take away
I'm
from the
not
training.
shitting. I'm not shitting on these guys for seeing them. Good on you.
No, not
if
at all.
that is a priority
Not at all.
for you to see them, good on you. You want to learn what they do? Yes, go for
I'm only
it. They're
caveating
popular.
what you're
They're
saying.
popular for a reason, right? Because maybe their system works.
something.
They're they got something that no one else has. And there's people like Ronan or something who does private training, and there's like Chris Costa and Travis Haley and all these other guys, right? They have their own sort of training, right? And that they that's their bread and butter. They capitalize on that because they know that there's people out there that don't have the opportunity that they had in terms of training, and then they're just passing it along to other people, right? It's just a knowledge share. Yes, it does cost money, and yes, they have their own ways, but take it with a grain of salt. It's you have to develop your own sort of training with it. You have to develop your own sort of techniques and what works for you and what doesn't work for you, right? And that's one of those things where you go out there and train on your own or with other people.
Lucas actually, yeah, exactly. But I think Lucas actually brings it up a lot. He always talks about like the keyboard warriors basically that always talk about how things should be done and stuff like that. And it's like, dude, unless you're actually applying it and trying it out and experimenting with it on your own time, you're not learning anything. You can go to a course, but you're not going to be an expert when you come back from that. It's the same. It's the same thing when people host, like when people at the Knowledge host courses. And I find this a little frustrating at times when people host courses, but they don't actually apply the very course that they're teaching. They do it to make money out of it. And there's a few people that do that. Not going to name names or anything like that, but it kind of grinds me because it's one of those things like, dude, practice what you preach. You know what I mean? If you're going to sell it to somebody, and then be fluid with it, like understand that there's an evolution to it and things always change. They never stay stagnant or the same. So the idea that something will always be the same, like, I don't know, 100 years back is completely nonsense because the way that we fight with weapons has completely changed over 100 years. And matter of fact is it's changed even more in the last 20 as a result of urban warfare.
You don't even see the enemy anymore.
The beauty of it, though, is the
IEDs
psychological
and
factor
everything like that.
has not changed.
Yeah.
So
No, it's gotten bigger, dude.
I mean,
It's gotten way bigger.
to emphasize on what you're saying,
Wait,
go ahead.
No, sorry.
So to emphasize what Dave's saying, when it comes to like teaching you the core fundamentals, there's a difference between a celebrity versus like an instructor or trainer, right? Because an instructor or trainer will teach you the base fundamentals and then work on it and then make you develop on your own, versus someone who goes out there and be like, this is the way you do it. I want to see you do it like this. Right. And then, there's no flexibility on it. There's no, so it's almost like, sort of like karate where you're just working on forms. Right. and then you're
Yeah,
not
you can get
focusing.
hoodwinked very easily.
Yeah,
too.
you're not focusing on what you're actually doing or what you're actually doing, right? And it's one of those things where you go out there, you train karate, and then you suck because all of a sudden a guy that does jiu-jitsu something or like Jeet Kune Do or something like that, like grapples you, and then you're on the floor and you're like, well, fuck, I don't know what to do because I didn't train this, right? There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
You weren't ready to be.
So again, like just to emphasize, there is a difference between someone who's a celebrity who just teaches you this is what he does and this is how it looks cool versus a trainer who actually teaches you fundamentals, training, and then how you could develop it on your own. And I prefer the other half because I come from a teaching background myself, and I know how to sort of crack it down and develop it on my own fundamentals and train it to people. And that's what I love doing.
To go on your point there too, which is really important, when Poi talks about fundamentals, that is something that doesn't change too frequently. It is something where there is actually like a base to actually understand and to work off of. They do change from time to time, but there's less change in the fundamentals. It's more of essentially like what would you call it, your foundation to things, especially if you're going to build a house, for example. You need to put it on something solid before you can actually start building the supports and everything else up to the point where you have your third floor.
Yeah, and then the facade could be different.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then fundamentals are almost universal in that aspect. You can find them wherever you go. They may be different or slightly different by variation, depending on what you're talking about. But they kind of come together in the same essence, right? It's like safety. That's a very basic one. That's easy. It comes off the top of the head. It may be different where you go in terms of who's teaching or what type of system you're learning off of, but the principles are still going to be the same in essence.
Yeah, it's sort of like when someone's teaching you like the shooter stances or the isosceles or the the triangle or whatever, right? Either your front's towards the enemy or your sideways, or it doesn't change at all. You're still you're at your maximum sort of fighting stance.
Yeah.
And then you're bringing up that weapon as quick as possible, right? So
nowadays we always present the plate to the front.
Yeah.
Because you have armor, whereas back in the day
you don't have to.
Your side.
Yeah, you get sideways. You got to be as skinny as possible. See, again, it changes over time, right? So you can't be stuck at one sort of.
It shifts.
It always shifts, right? And it'll change again in the future, depending on what kind of future weapons we get. We could get corner shots or, live video feeds on the guns. It'll change overall. Trust me, it does.
Oh, dude, we're getting smart weapons. We're getting stuff where the rounds are going to track the target on their own. We're not even going to need to do anything anymore.
Whoa, okay,
dude,
there.
The only thing I need is a drone, dude. That's all I need.
Hey man,
don't worry, they shoot around the corner.
If they're working on polymer rounds, tracking rounds are just around the corner.
Yeah, got smart bullets. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's a lot of topics we covered here.
Well, I mean, it's a broad subject, right?
So I guess we could skip to this one. We've talked about all the training and all the fundamentals. Gunfighter skills is not just something that you have to focus on. There are a plethora of other training you could think of. It all depends on you as an individual, what you want to focus on. Fitness could be one of them. Again, like for me, it's map reading. The leadership access, teamwork. Small fire teams to squads to platoons and stuff. Fieldcraft is another one. If you're into just bugging out, camping out, that's a big one. Fieldcraft, or team maneuvering, even just working with your friends and maneuvering.
Ooh, can we segue into that one? Because this is actually
maneuvering. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
So fieldcraft is a topic that I guess is becoming more and more popular now again in airsoft because of the rise of MSW and like longer Milsims where airsofters are actually emulating essentially like 2-3 days in field. So this is it's a funny thing to touch on because airsofters get really good at force on force and like gunfighter engagements and being snappy. But the moment you talk to somebody about having to actually ruck out into the middle of nowhere and try and sleep outside, that's a whole different element, man. And I think it's funny on my end because at least on my Instagram, I've been getting a lot of feedback from people who want to ask more questions about it because I actually do it, and I do it for a job as well too.
Yep.
And I like it in its own essence, but at the same time, oh man, that is a whole skill set that it kind of goes down into like tree roots, man. There's a lot that you can get out of it, but compared to just the average run and gun days, it's also dangerous too.
Again, it's one of those things that requires a lot of practice too. You got to make sure you know,
Yeah.
you bring the proper equipment too, because it's not just you go in there and then you kind of just make it on your own. Some of these guys take a lot of practice to make shelter
Yeah.
or
Also,
even.
don't make.
Go ahead.
Like one thing when it comes to fieldcraft is be very cognizant of people that tell you to take shortcuts. There's a lot of that going on, and it drives me bonkers. I mean, I'll say this much: at least if you're going to go do a Milsim and you're going to sleep outside, bring a proper sleep system. Don't
Yep.
be the guy that does pack light, freeze at night, and do the ranger thing where you just sleep under a ranger blanket in your kit. That is a horrible idea.
It is.
If you're laying on the ground, I think the proper word is was it conduction, where the ground just pulled all the heat away from you, basically.
It sucks. It sucks all your energy out. Yeah, that's what happens. So you got to get proper sleeping, a sleeping mat so that you're not cold. A proper sleeping bag. If you have shelter.
Hey, man, if you don't got a sleeping mat, man, all you just gotta do is find a bunch of branches or logs, all right? Throw that down. Now you're risen above the ground. It's gonna be a little uncomfortable, but hey, man, if contact shows up,
oh man,
or you just hug your buddy.
Man, I'm with the homies.
Just get a sleeping mat. Seriously,
yeah,
get the Z mats.
Nah, man, I'm with the homies.
Nah, man.
No, and
I paid to have.
I came to this
I'm
gym.
embracing it, bro.
But I didn't.
It's far different. It's far different from just camping in general because you're camping out in the cold with much more minimal gear than what you're camping with, because you got to haul all that stuff in, and then on top of that you have contacts that are trying to hunt you down, so you have to have a first and second stand watch out there, and as well as someone who's got some guys that are positioned outside just to make sure they don't cross over our lines, right? So it's not just the immediate camp. You got to have someone outside as well. There's a lot of management on that as well.
Yeah, the funny thing when you're talking about that kind of thing is it comes down to actually managing a larger element and understanding it.
Yeah.
And then what your position is and how it plays out.
Yeah, your LPO piece, that's what it is, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And a big deciding factor in that for a lot of guys too is which a lot of people don't understand, is you can't control the weather.
Nope.
So I mean, you have to anticipate what it could be at best and what it can be at worst. And it's funny because when it starts raining, you see who's actually tough enough to kind of try and stick it out. But man, if you're gonna try and sleep outside when it's raining, that's hard.
You better be
even
prepared, man.
Yeah, even from a military perspective, man, the moment you're wet through and through and you have to sleep in it, it sucks so much. It just takes so much more out of you.
Well, if you can get past that level of acceptance, and I know you know exactly what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just yep, okay,
just get over it.
This is what it is, kind of thing. Then
embrace
the
suck.
fun you want. Yeah,
yeah.
Man, and then for myself, that was Crossfire because it was piss and rain. They had that rule, and I'm not saying it's a stupid rule because in real life you got to prone too, but it was piss and rain. I had to prone with the M60, and right off the bat, what happens? We get out the gate. There's contact not even 50 feet away from me, and I had to lay right in a puddle. Oh.
Yeah, that happens, man.
And we were there for half an hour while we crept up on the left. Yeah.
It's great. It's great. I loved it.
Yeah, and then be
Hey, I took that guy out for you.
And then oh god. And then you got to be smart about that kind of thing too, because as much as you want to be the tough guy who wants to tough it out, if you come ill prepared, equipment wise, for that type of environment, you're asking for trouble. The worst thing
those are the most dangerous people at an event. Is you think you're tough and then you're gonna tough it out. No, you're gonna have you're gonna have a bad time. You're gonna have a hard time, and then not only that, you're probably gonna be a walking casualty for us at that point because you are not feeling well.
So often.
And
liability.
Even,
that's it.
And
that's
even that a real one too. You don't want to be that guy who has to get emergency evac from Milsim because you yourself didn't come
prepared.
You were ill prepared. That it's embarrassing. It's sad. You paid big money, and then now you're paying even bigger money.
Yeah, this is fieldcraft is one of those things. Fieldcraft is one of those things you develop over time on your own. You could watch a lot of people do it. You could watch a lot of videos do it, but you have to go out there and develop on your own. And at Panther too, you could bring all your gear, try them out, and see how much they weigh, because it's one of those things where they don't
Yeah.
tell you how much they weigh when you actually start rucking it on your own. You're like, oh my god, this is heavy and I gotta carry this. You're already miserable right there. So if you train
Yeah.
for it and
Yeah.
you optimize your field craft to what you need and what you don't need, then you become better at yourself. It's like it's almost like situational awareness. You're just knowing yourself even more, and what you could bring in and how much you could bring in. You don't need this much water. You don't need, well, you're always going to need a lot of water, but you don't need this much gear or, things that are going to weigh you down. Then you could just, trim it down and remove it, right? And then this is all
it's
part of your
funny
training.
Yeah, it's funny because you can, if there's one thing that I've learned from my time in the military is a lot of the time they'll give you a list of like all the different things you need to bring, what's necessary, and at the same time you can kind of skim off that list, because then depending on the individual, you kind of figure out where you can cut things. So for example, like the amount of clothes that you bring, you should really bring a lot of unders and socks and things like that. But in terms of combats, maybe not, because if you're going to strip down and go into your fart sack at night, okay, you take off your clothes, don't sleep in. Yeah, exactly. Don't sleep in wet clothes.
Yeah.
Guys that do that or tell you to do that are idiots. Incredibly
Your energy
stupid.
just gets zapped right away. It's the same as sleeping on the ground, honestly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Those are tough guys.
No, that's not tough, man. That's just stupid. I mean,
no, it's called liability.
Dude,
I'm saying the tough guys.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen guys in training basically from when I've gone through with them who go, no man, I'm just gonna, and they just pull out a Ranger blanket, they throw it over, like, no man, I'm just gonna tough it out. And then I talked to a buddy of mine who ended up trying that out. I'm like, so how'd you sleep last night? He's like, I didn't sleep at all. And I thought it was a terrible idea. I'm never doing that again. I'm like, yeah, no kidding, right? Like, just get into your fart sack and go to sleep and you'll enjoy it. Even if it's like 2 hours.
And if there's people that do it like that, it's also good development skills for them, because of the fact that they know it sucked. Now they're going to not do it, right? So there's lessons learned in failing. There's lessons learned at winning, right? So there you go.
I'll be to go back to gunfighter drills and stuff. I'll be happy to share more in terms of like fieldcraft in the near future. But if we're talking like gunfighter drills, it's an extremely applicable application for airsoft in general, especially because we deal with a lot of, in technical speaking, close quarters combat. Whereas like most military ranges technically go from 300 and inwards at that point, whereas airsoft, your max is maybe 100 meters if you're lucky, and you're not pushing past that. So you're already in that really close zone, technically speaking. So gunfighter drills essentially really come into play with that. And I mean, I've put up my videos about it, and some of you guys have seen it. I assume all of you, because you guys tend to follow my shit, pardon my language. But it's one of those skill sets that anybody can develop, and you can work on it in your own time, just learning movements, which really helps. And then when you do it with a team, the fluidity of it is really functional. And like, I'll give a shout out to the one local team, like Overwatch 6.
Yep.
Those guys are really, really fluid with how they move, especially in the city. And it's very dynamic. It's nice to watch. And then being on the other end of it, it's like, wow, these guys actually kind of get the principles.
I mean, they show up every weekend. So, I mean, they're going to develop a certain sort of
100%.
skill and training as they go along, right?
Yeah,
a lot of these other teams as well, right? Like what is it, Aces and Eights? They're out there. They communicate really well on the radio, and to a point where you could just when you hear them on the radio, all of a sudden they just appear in the woods. You're like, oh, I see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you just got to go out there, train with your team, train yourself, and then you guys get better at it. It's like experience points, right? And that's it. You just got to go out there and grind the experience points, right? That's all you got to do. Yeah. And level up.
Experience points. God, we're playing World of Warcraft. We're just killing the boars in the forest to level up enough, right?
Oh my gosh, that brings back some memories.
The Sword of Truth or whatever it was.
Yeah. These are 2 XP per kill. That means we have to kill a set amount of boars.
Oh my god.
Man. We just dated ourselves.
Yeah.
Dude, man.
Thanks.
Before diminishing returns.
Oh my gosh. So I guess the last topic we could talk about it is for real steel companies looking at airsoft. Should they start market? Because when Lucas was saying like he was the only company out there that's real steel related, that was sort of sort of like marketing and as well as giving out prizes and stuff, right? They're the only real estate company out there. Should real estate companies, in Canada and as well as the US, right? Should they start sort of going out and advertising, or as well as like just going out and outreaching to airsofters? Because
straight up, they'd be foolhardy not to, because airsofters ironically will probably spend more money on their products than some of the real steel guys. Which sounds ridiculous.
Because I think it comes down to what we were talking about before, is the cringe factor from airsoft to the real steel community. I think that's still sort of a big thing for them to look at, and then they'll be like, no, we're not like, it's a novelty. We don't want to deal with them. But it's getting to a point where they should look at them. For reason being we're a good sort of like a gateway for younger, younger kids, younger folks to get into the real deal, right? Because they can't afford or get licenses for real guns, right? Or equipment.
I think airsoft is a great market if the real steel community would, so to speak, wake up and see it. Because airsoft spends, let's be honest here. Airsoft companies only exist because the real steel community, so to speak, and manufacturing community never acknowledged airsoft. So what did airsoft do? We replicated everything. All the way down to the point where like you have guys who buy knockoff cry gear. I'm like, why are you paying this much money to get a clone from China when you can go buy the real one used for the exact same price? Or you can buy the new one, a new one for a little bit more. And you're supporting the actual manufacturer in its own essence. Now, if I were in the position of a manufacturer and I'd produce like kit or optics or whatever for, real firearms, I would look to that and I'd go, okay, this is a viable community. Clearly, they're itching to get something like this, and I would try and kind of segue into that. Now, some companies have kind of figured that out, and they're doing it slowly through, like Glock, for example, doing
licensing,
and licensing, so on and so forth. But I think the other part too, which also kind of turns a lot of companies off, at least in the real world, is, and we're for being honest here, a lot of airsofters are dirt cheap, and they want something and they don't want to pay the actual cost for it or understand the cost. It's like the argument when you segue into real optics versus replica optics. It's like, okay, if the real company wanted to sell you that real optic, they're not going to sell it to you for $60. They're going to sell it for the value of what it's worth and what goes into it. And if you're smart,
it's $1,200 for a reason. Like,
exactly.
But if it gets shot out, replace it.
Exactly. But the point is, like with airsoft in general, is it is what it is right now. But I think we're seeing sort of it shift in that essence. So with Lucas recognizing it, I guarantee you, like future company heads and people that come into these companies or take over will start to recognize it more as a market. I know it's different in Europe because the European guys get way more acknowledgement from the real community, because in a lot of countries they can't actually get access to firearms as easily as we are able to in North America in comparison. And then at the same time, for them, it's a great segue, because it's a great way to penetrate the civilian market besides just law enforcement, military, because you're very limited at times with how much you can do there. And if you can sell,
it opens up your pool a lot.
Carriers. Yeah, exactly. I mean, 511 figured that out with CrossFit, okay, and they brought in like, weighted vest, which is just their 511 tactic vest, and they literally put it in a steel plate and like CrossFitters
they started sponsoring events too, and it's like it's a big deal now. Their name's out there and everybody knows what that brand is, right?
Well, and then
it's surprising how much Molly you see on CrossFitters.
Well, and then on top of that, you got celebrity rappers and other artists like that wearing like the Louis Vuitton chest rigs and plate carriers now out there. So you see the memeage happening. You see the interest sort of starting to grow out there and stuff like that. And yeah, it definitely like, well, at least for me in that sense, like it's like I would love to pay for something that won't like, well, things are gonna break, but something that's going to work and last as long as you take care of it and stuff like that, right? Like for me, recently my eyes were opened up to the Tokyo Marui MWS. I just looked at that, tried it out, saw it. I would love to get someone's opinion on it, maybe a year down the line from them owning it and using it and stuff like that.
Everybody who owns an MWS, go right the Mac Tac shop and let Tac know what you think about it. Especially when he's working on other guns too. He loves that.
There will be a total of 3 people who will come in because they are the only ones who can afford those.
Yeah, well, at the same time, it's just like it's like from my experience with just having guns where they break all the time and stuff like that, right? Because you're sitting there thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna be cheap, right? It's like those cheap guns only work if you're practicing like simple mechanics, like reload mechanics and all that stuff. As soon as you get into the fact of like running up, jumping down onto something, posting up onto something, that's when your cac rail starts flying off and whatnot, and it's like you realize, why did I buy this thing? This thing is stupid, and what I'm doing is stupid.
Do you have possible experiences with that?
So,
yeah, so do I.
Yeah, we've all been there though. So
Whoa, why is the stock broken? What the hell? This is brand new.
Yeah,
I just jumped up.
My favorite one is using a Riz mounted grenade launcher on the bottom of a cac rail, and the whole bottom of the cac rail and the grenade launcher falls off at mid reload. That's why you go to barrel mounted, for Christ's sake. It holds on there and stays.
Exactly, and so we wouldn't have
Go
those
nowhere.
problems if people would like, not saying that if real steel guys, like manufacturers, got involved, but maybe they, well, at least involved, right? Maybe not directly involved, but maybe even if they like,
I think they should. Yeah,
and stuff like that.
I agree they should, because with also the changing political state and stuff of gun laws and gun control stuff, for them they should start not looking into avenues, but start spilling into those avenues, just so they can get a heads up of what the environment is for airsoft, right? Because just like in Europe, where gun laws are pretty strict, right? They start to fall into the airsofter side, and then there's like there's an entire community worth of people to sell to, and that's a market right there for them, right? And for the gun community here, the gun community here is very small compared to what the airsofter is now. Maybe it is the same size, maybe it's big. I don't know the statistics is, but opening up.
Are you talking Canada?
Yeah, in Canada. Yeah, but opening
Canada
up.
is quite large, actually.
Yeah, but if you open up to airsofters,
sure,
you're still gonna get a good profit out of them regardless. So especially if it's locally made.
There's no point in limiting yourself from what you can. Like, you open up your scope, right? Exactly.
You like money.
That's the only point. Do you not like money? That is the question.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. If you don't like money,
Airsofters has a lot of money too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and this is the thing that always makes me laugh too, right? Because people are all like getting into the thing where it's all like, oh, well, you have real steel shooters and then you have airsofters, but then you also have airsofters who are real steel shooters, and then you just don't understand where that money goes.
Well, let's be honest here, okay? The airsoft community in general is a market that's ripe, essentially, for a real firearms manufacturer or gear manufacturer to penetrate into. And I kid you not, the airsofters will literally throw money out the window basically for it, because on one end you get the guys that take it seriously, you get the other guys who just want the kit, and they will pay like what is it, an arm and a leg basically for it. It's ridiculous. Sometimes you watch some of the resales, you're like, oh my god. This dude paid this. Yeah, exactly. Flexing, right? But hey, that's what it is.
I give you an arm, bro.
Yeah.
Now, if they could get night vision people into that,
Yeah.
Oh my god! Don't start there, boy.
Night vision is actually one of those markets that's starting to see it before the other part of real steel.
That's what Lucas was mentioning. That's what Lucas is mentioning, because back then when he did his his events for airsoft was like years ago. He comes in, he was like one of a few people that were wearing it, and then now you go to an event, it's like 50 people wearing it. You're like,
everyone's
whoa.
wearing it.
Even DT and VGs too, like dual, like quad nods, like they have quad, like. Really? You
you got guys with the 14s, you guys got with the GT MVGs, and then you guys got with the GP MVGs.
So that's it. That's another thing we could incorporate in this as well, is night vision training too. Where is a place that you could shoot real steel and night vision at the same time? Most ranges are closed at night and stuff like that, unless.
Oh, dude,
it's hard.
Dude, with night vision, you can also
even stigma. Why, bro? Why do you have that? Why do you need that?
Honestly, though, like, it's funny we talk about this kind of thing, but airsoft is the closest thing you can get the proper force on force night training
Yeah.
outside of the military
Yeah.
or the law enforcement. It's
Oh my
very
God.
effective for that, and at the
Night
same time
engagement.
you're actually engaging people.
Yeah.
So like,
And
I mean, the distances are a little bit different.
it's got its own
Principles
set of
are still there, man.
skills. It's got its own set of skills when you're using
Yeah.
NVGs, but we can get into that in another time because it's just
100%.
know.
It-
Well,
And to answer Tack's question on why do you need that, I need to walk my dog at night.
same. Dave, you
No,
too,
dude, I
right?
wanna ride
Okay,
the lights.
that's why
I wanna ride the
SchoolBoy
lights.
has
I
them.
the lights.
That's
I'm
why
not-
Boy
I'm
has them.
hey, I'm not saying you shouldn't have them. Why would I have it MVGs? I want to see the stars, bro.
That's the same
My-
excuse I do
my,
too.
I just want to see stars.
My entire goal is to ride around the city of Vancouver in complete darkness with no lights on my bike. That's the goal.
All right, guys, you know if the power's out, you know who did it.
All right, we're gonna hunt you down at night.
Hit the generators.
Oh man.
Zero dark stupid.
Yeah. All right, I think we've covered everything we need to talk about here. Yeah.
Exhausted ourselves. Yeah.
Is there anything else you guys want to add to it other than me adding night vision there? But that's an entire set of skills that.
Well, I feel like we could go into detail on like night game mechanics later, right?
We
Like,
will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that is something that we could seriously talk about because I feel like
But it's just one of those skills that you can, you
Yeah.
know, complement with with real gunfighter, with real steel as well, as well as like gunfighting skills at night. It's it's a lot of things to develop, skill wise
touch
over
with it-
time.
to just touch with it lightly. One of the things I want to say is like example is just with the use proper mags, like the 30
Yeah.
round mags or whatever it is in night engagements. Because one of the big cringe factors for me with night games when it comes to airsoft is guys who rock the high caps, stuff like that, or whatever, and they see the flashlight and they'll just unload all 200 BBs at that light, right? To me, that's just not realistic in the factor of what you're trying to achieve because a lot of people are going to those night games for the quote unquote realism factor, and then they quote unquote use a high cap.
Hey Mac, you wanna hack for that?
Tack.
This is a trick that I like to do.
I'm Mac.
Take your light or
You hurt me. You hurt me more than you know. I just want you to know that.
sorry, Mac. Do you want a tip for that?
Let's go.
Take your flashlight or another one off your weapon, turn it on, put it beside you, and see what happens.
Yes. Yes.
I do that. It's
Yes.
funny because you can turn it on and you see how people respond to it, and it's like, okay, well, clearly someone's shooting this thing up.
They shoot at that, and then you shoot at them, and then they don't understand how it's not. You're not getting hit.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Did we just give it away?
Bro, that's cheating, man. What do you mean? You're
Oh,
you're supposed to be
man, what
behind your light.
I'm supposed to be behind the light.
And anyways, let's the light touch on the night.
Don't
after
let's
that.
not dive into it deeper. That's
Yeah,
a
let's-
rabbit hole on its
yeah.
own. All right. Well, if you guys have nothing else to add, I would like to also say thank you for coming along, Schoolboy, Dave.
always a pleasure.
I heard you were doing a raffle online. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm trying to promote my Instagram page and my website a little bit more, but I wanted to give back to people. As you all know, like I pay out of my own pocket basically for this. I don't get anything for free. It makes things a lot better because I can give real details on things. But anywho, I wanted to put a rifle together that's, smoking in the sense that it's actually well built, it's thought after, and it's not something cheap, and I want to raffle it off at a good price. So whoever's out there will win it and get a smoking deal. And if
I'm
it's okay
gonna-
with you guys, I'd like to bring it up on.
Yeah, go
screen.
ahead.
Oh,
Go
ahead.
yo, show that sex symbol. Let's go.
So-
And then I'll show your
You guys
post
all know me.
afterwards. Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely.
Oh,
So this
my God.
this thing is done up. It's got full trademarks, whole
Classic.
9 yards. It's got a proper grenade launcher with the trades, the grenade
Cold.
launcher sight,
Oh, cold grenade launcher.
and it functions. And I'm almost done with the internal work, but essentially it's going to be a fully kitted up rifle and ready to go out of the box.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you're getting a real optic with it. It's a hollow sun.
Ooh.
I'm not going to throw in a replica on this one. So in the future, if this is successful and this turns out to be something that's a lot of fun, because the money that comes from that, I'm going to put back to Airsoft and as well as my webpage and everything so I can keep this moving. I'll do another one again, and it'll
Yeah.
be sort of the same
And,
thing. It'll be
on-
high quality stuff. put together well.
Yeah. On the screen here, guys, I'm just showing you what Dave is looking at his post. So he's showing off the gun there. You got the Hollow Sun red dot, and yeah, it's a beautiful gun made by yours truly. And yeah, check him out at SchoolBoy Airsoft. What's on Instagram, and as well as SchoolBoy Airsoft on Facebook. And you don't have a YouTube yet, do you?
No, I don't have YouTube.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I'm going to be going down that route anytime soon.
Gotcha.
Well, make sure you guys check out his blog.
Yes,
that
the
one,
blog,
that is where David gets really in depth, and I know a lot of people miss it because they check the Instagram, but they forget to check on that. So seriously, guys, take a dive.
Yeah, the
into
website's
Dave's
on
blog.
the top of the link, so it's easy to find too, and it goes right to it.
Awesome. All right, that's a giveaway right there. Do you know how much it costs and all, or are you not giving out the price tag on it?
I'm going to give out the price tag when I'm done, but if I'm ballparking it right now, I've probably put close to $2,000 into this thing already off the bat. So, give and take. I mean, I'm putting more into it. I'm trying to finish what I'm doing with it right now, but the aim is for it to be around that price essentially. So it's well worth the money of what you're getting essentially. I don't like to cheap out on my own stuff, so why would I make something cheap for you?
Awesome.
Mhm.
Wow, thanks for putting that out. Wow.
Oh, Dave, have you released all of your contest entry info yet, or are you still working on that?
No,
I know that I teased your post, and a lot of people were interested in that. Okay, and I mean a lot of people. So again, beautiful gun. A lot of people want to know how to win it.
So I'm not going to release the information until I've released the post. The blog post is going to cover in detail what's in it, what I've done to it, the focus. There's going to be a teaser put up on the Instagram of its functionality because I want to actually have people see how it performs, besides just the little snippets that I show here and there. And then essentially I'll be putting up the entire raffle list, the rules, and so on and so forth. It will be fair, so to speak. I don't want to make it so one person's guaranteed it. I want it to be advantageous for everyone, but at the same time, it's not going to be one of those things where it's specific to any individual. It'll be out there, and if it works, it works. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know somebody's looking forward to winning that thing.
Yeah. I mean, hell, man. It'd be funny then to put my own name in it and try and win it.
Don't you dare.
I won't, man. As much as it hurts me to let it go, because pardon my language. I love building stuff, and I really like the way that this thing is coming out. But in all honesty, I want someone else to have the opportunity to enjoy a really well-made gun, or AEG.
AEG.
Yeah, AEG.
Awesome. Thanks for that again. Thanks, on behalf of the community, thank you for, putting up this raffle, because
yeah, you're welcome.
It's not a lot of people that, send out raffles there. We do get the raffles for the, the cancer funds that Trainwreck does. So there's not a lot of people out in the field that does raffles here, and it's pretty awesome that you're doing that. Other than that, it is the new year. If you'd like us to do anything sort of different in the show, or you'd like us to do anything sort of at the field or anything like that, let us know below. I know we want to do sort of like interviews with sort of teams out there, and it's difficult to have them come out on the field on like a Thursday or a Friday or something to do an interview. So what I might do is just do a field interview with some of the teams here, and get to know some of you guys. We want to broadcast more locally. We want to, present and showcase a lot of local teams. And, for that, we start at the field, and we start at the root of things. And that is, the teams, the players out there that are out there. And, just like Dave himself was, a small-time player back then. Now he's like, pretty big with his blog, with his Instagram, some pretty hot posts that he posts once in a while.
I try.
Yeah. I would, if you guys want us to do that, we could do that. We could definitely do like a 10-minute interview with each team. Just let us know if that's what you want to do. Other than that, give us any other ideas.
Well, let's be real, Poi. If you don't come to us, you're gonna have combat reporters Mac and Tack on your butts out there.
Or Matt. Matt.
Yeah, or Matt. We'll get that interview.
Matt has the serious questions.
Yeah.
Very serious questions.
When he gets in there and he asks the deep,
hard
questions. Like, what
Deep
did you
hard
eat in the morning?
Yeah.
You just-
why do
Does
you
your
even
wife
play?
know how into airsoft you are?
Yeah. Why do you play Army Guys?
All right, that has
Is this
been.
thing even on?
I'm gonna mute you now.
Why are we even here?
I think that is it. I made an error at the very beginning. This is actually episode 29, not 28. Whoops, my bad. Episode 28 was last week or last week. So this is episode 29 of Panther's Folding Table Talk. Again, thank you, David, for coming along and giving us a little bit of an input on Gunfighter versus other skills that you can acquire from airsoft. All of us have different sort of skill sets that we try to train and attain. And any last words from you, McIntyre?
Just hope to see you guys out on the weekend and have a great week.
Absolutely. Take care, gents.
2021.
Yep.
Let's get it.
All right. And that is it. We'll see you guys on the next podcast. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Take it easy.